Okay, let's get started, okay?
Got it.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the George and Jeff Show. I'm Jeff Gorman, joined by George Phillips, and today we are going to preview the 2015 WWE Royal Rumble. We're just 1 week away, and everybody's very excited about it. And George, SummerSlam traditionally has been the number 2 date on the WWE calendar, but I think in the last couple years, I think the Royal Rumble has really taken that spot. I think a lot of people look forward to Royal Rumble almost as much as WrestleMania. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. In fact, from a personal standpoint, first of all, thank you for, putting this show together and allowing me to be your co-host because, I come from a boxing background and, when I first met you, I knew you knew wrestling. And then you're in Ring of Honor, you're sharing rings with CM Punk and Daniel Bryan and guys that are at the peak of their careers. And, you climbed to the top of the mountain, my man. So back to your question, I went to WrestleMania with my son in New York, and it was fun. It was a bucket list experience, and when the fireworks started shooting off, I started crying, okay? But I love the Royal Rumble. In fact, obviously WrestleMania has more of a build-up, but Royal Rumble to me is one of the most fun pay-per-views to watch, especially when we see Kofi Kingston and what he's going to do this year.
That's right, the way he's able to stave off elimination in a lot of crazy ways. And just going back to the beginning of Royal Rumble, because I've been watching them on the WWE Network, just as soon as it started, you could tell it's such a special event with 30 guys and a new wrestler comes down every 2 minutes and just completely unpredictable. I think that's what people love about pro wrestling is you really don't know what's going to happen. And I think last year was definitely a good symbol of that. Of course, it was Daniel Bryan not even showing up in the Royal Rumble. He ended up winning it all and ended up being Batista, which ended up not being very popular with the people who were there in Pittsburgh for last year's Royal Rumble.
It was not. In fact, I got to go to that one, too, with my son. We try to go to one pay-per-view a year. And first of all, it was way cool when Kevin Nash came out. That was just awesome. But when number 30 hit and it was Rey Mysterio and not Daniel Bryan, you should have seen that crowd turn to a guy who normally gets major pops in any arena he goes to. Just the crowd just shifted gears for the rest of the show. And then even when Batista won, the crowd just was not excited about it. They were booing him. And if you watch the replay on the WWE Network, it looks like production kind of drowned that booing out a little bit.
That's right. It's interesting how the WWE universe, the fans, so to speak, really can kind of dictate the way things are going. We're going to talk about who the contenders are in this year's Royal Rumble in just a little bit, and we'll see, who is the consensus to win the Royal Rumble, who maybe the fans want to win the Royal Rumble. But George, I'd like to start by talking about the championship match. Of course, it was originally billed as Brock Lesnar defending the championship against John Cena. They were billing it as the final battle, and usually I like a one-on-one matchup for the championship. But I think in this case, it's a much more interesting, a much more intriguing match now that they've added Seth Rollins as the third man in that match. I think it's going to be very interesting and very unpredictable.
It's very interesting. And when we get into the Royal Rumble predictions, I'll give you my prediction on who's going to win the Royal Rumble and why I'm choosing it. But as for now, I'm going to go with the status quo and say Brock Lesnar retains his title. His contract goes through WrestleMania. I know he's already been in talks with the UFC and Bellator about going back to the cage. Why? I have no idea, because he's a great MMA fighter, but once he's figured out, he's beatable. But for now, I'm going to say that Brock Lesnar is going to win at the Royal Rumble, and he will go to main event WrestleMania. And I got a funny feeling I can see this show developing over episodes. You're going to be the baby face, and I'm going to be the heel here. But I do see Brock Lesnar winning the title.
I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction. I think that, because the one thing you have to remember is John Cena, if he wins, that's his 16th world championship, and that's going to tie Ric Flair's record. Of course, that's something that very interestingly could happen. And, I'm not sure who's going to win that one between Cena and Lesnar, but I think that after the match, I think Seth Rollins is going to cash in that briefcase and win the championship. I don't think Rollins is going to win the match. In fact, I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Cena is going to get that win. He's going to get that 16th victory, possibly even at Rollins' expense. But I think that once the smoke clears, I think that Brock Lesnar might end up beating up Cena after that match, leaving him for dead, and then Rollins wakes up, cashes in the briefcase, and wins the championship. Because remember, Seth Rollins has 2 chances to win the title. He's got his title match, then he's got the briefcase. I think that Rollins, the Mr. Money in the Bank, is going to walk out of the Royal Rumble as the champion. It's going to be very interesting to see.
Very interesting to see.
All right, let's move on and take a look at the Tag Team Championship match. It's been a very interesting little soap opera type storyline as you have the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, who are now the 2-time Tag Team Champions, taking on The Miz and his stunt double, Damien Mizdow, who were the champions for a little while. Just a really hilarious act with Damien Mizdow copying everything that The Miz does and says. I really love that. And I was wondering what you think how that match tends to play out, George.
Here's what I think. First of all, the Damien Mizdow angle, it's very entertaining, especially if you get the chance to see them live. Because the camera, when you're watching Raw, watching SmackDown, watching Main Event, whatever show, whether it's on broadcast TV or on the WWE Network, you don't get to see Damien Mizdow all the time. When you watch him live at a live event, just plant on him. It is absolutely hysterical because he emulates almost every single move. Even when The Miz is in the ring getting pinned, he falls off the ring onto the ground and basically pins himself. What I see happening in this match is the Usos are getting another major push, which they obviously deserve. There's that storyline angle with the wife of one of the Usos and that feud going on, almost the Funkadelics coming back, feuding against each other. I see the Usos winning the match, but what I see is more of a public collapse beginning of The Miz and Damien Mizdow, which will work through February and March, and I see a match at WrestleMania between The Miz and Damien Mizdow.
You know what? I don't mean to copy you, but I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think the Usos are going to win. I think they're eventually going to hold those belts all the way until WrestleMania, where they could possibly lose them to the Ascension. They're really building the Ascension up very well. I think it's going to be Usos and Ascension at Mania, but I think you're right. I think it's going to be Miz and Mizdow, and the fans are really going to be behind Damien Mizdow for that. You're right. I think we're going to start to see the breakup of Miz and Mizdow there with Mizdow going face. I got to tell you, Damien Sandow, he is a great performer. I think that he has really nailed all 3 gimmicks, starting with the intellectual savior of the masses, which I thought he really had a lot more legs. He could have gone with that. Of course, he won the Money in the Bank briefcase, but unfortunately was the only one to actually lose his title match. Then, when he was imitating everybody coming down to the ring, that I thought was hilarious too, although he lost every match. And now being the stunt double, just playing everything perfectly, he's just a great performer. I really hope that there's some good things in future for him.
He's good, and he's still relatively young in the wrestling world, so barring injury, he does have a bright future.
All right, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the Royal Rumble itself. Of course, it's very strange how we're coming down to, as we tape this, we're just a week away from the Rumble. They've only announced those 2 matches that we've been talking about, plus the Rumble, but they've only told us about 10 people that are in the Rumble. Let me go through them real quick. Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, Rusev, who's the U.S. champ, Bad News Barrett, who's the Intercontinental champ. Then you've got Bray Wyatt, Dean Ambrose, Goldust, Stardust, The Big Show, and Kane. Now, of course, there's going to be 20 other guys. There's going to be probably most of the other mid-card folks on the roster and, a few surprises. But before we talk about those 10 guys I mentioned, we have to remember, what about those 3 guys who got fired? Dolph Ziggler, Ryback, and Eric Rowan. Now, they've only got a week left to get those guys back in and rehire them to see if they could, because you really need those guys in the match, especially Ziggler.
I've been trying to wrap my head around how they're going to bring them back. The one thing, the obvious thing would be say something with Vince McMahon, kind of getting on Stephanie and Triple H for firing them. Why did you do that? Quit being power hungry. Get out. The major, way out in left field, is Shane O'Mac comes back and brings them back. Probably won't happen. Would be kind of cool. I'm seeing Sting having something to do with this, to where Sting comes back either on Raw, either in I wouldn't say a pre-show, but early on in the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, brings Ziggler and the two others back as a feud against the Authority. Whether they're officially hired or not depends on how you want to announce it, but something with Sting and those three guys setting up a potential Sting Triple H match at WrestleMania. That would be a good way to kick off that feud.
That would be very interesting, and that could lead into a real dark horse candidate to win the Rumble, and that would be Dolph Ziggler. Now, you got to realize that Ziggler, after years of really not being appreciated that much compared to his talent, remember the Survivor Series, he was the one who came back from a 1-3 deficit to win and to banish the Authority, albeit temporarily. But then, the next pay-per-view in his hometown of Cleveland, winning the Intercontinental title, and he could possibly get 3 big wins in a row on pay-per-view if he could somehow be reinstated and maybe win the Royal Rumble, and you could possibly get that sort of groundswell of support that Daniel Bryan had. And I guess that segues into people who could win the Royal Rumble, and you got to kind of start with Daniel Bryan. I mean, maybe what do you think about Daniel Bryan's chances of winning the Royal Rumble, considering he didn't even get a chance to be in it last year?
My 10-year-old son who's in bed right now, he'll be on the next show. We always play this game in the car when we're driving around. We're talking about a pay-per-view. He could trump us in wrestling knowledge. It's amazing. Quick story, when he and I were at WrestleMania, we were sitting in the stands waiting, for the show to start, and he starts ripping off these facts or whatever, and then some guy behind us was saying something to his friend, and it was an incorrect fact, and Dominic turned around and corrected him, and then these two young kids were just basically going back and forth with Dominic on trivia and facts. Well, so-and-so won the 1992, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's absolutely amazing. So we play this game, who do you think will win and who do you want to win? Okay? Now, obviously, everybody thinks that Roman Reigns is going to win the Royal Rumble based upon his push over the past year, based upon him breaking Kane's record for most eliminations in last year's Royal Rumble. I want to see Daniel Bryan win. I like him. And you've worked with him personally. He genuinely seems to enjoy himself out there. You can tell by the face. It's not an act when he gets out there, and that first reaction when he comes out behind the curtain. And he's injury prone. He's a fan favorite, but he's injury prone. How much time does he actually have left in professional wrestling? Hopefully it's a long time. Who knows? I would like to see him win the Royal Rumble. I think he's earned it. I think he deserves it, which leads me back to when we started the broadcast here. WrestleMania, Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar, and Rollins cashes in at WrestleMania.
That would really be some. Rollins cashes in at WrestleMania. That could work. That would be very interesting. I could certainly see that happening. It would really set up the ultimate underdog situation if you have Bryan winning the Rumble, taking on Lesnar. Even if people think or know that Lesnar is on his way out, just the idea of Bryan, can he conquer Brock Lesnar? That would really be something. And of course, there's also the conventional wisdom, which seems to be leading towards Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar if Reigns wins the Rumble. Let me throw a little bit of a curveball at you. What about Rusev? Now, Rusev's the U.S. champion. He's undefeated. He's beaten everybody that's come down the pike. He's going to be in the Royal Rumble. So you could be a situation where Cena actually wins the championship, could possibly hold it all the way until WrestleMania. Then you don't have the sort of lame duck Brock Lesnar situation, and you build up a champion versus undefeated foreign heel, kind of like back at WrestleMania 9 when you had Bret Hart facing the unstoppable Yokozuna. Wow.
Okay, curveball. That would be a curveball. And another thing I like to see with Rusev, I love the sport, sports entertainment. I watch the network, watch all the old stuff. I like to see the European Championship come back and put that around Rusev.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
Even down the road, that would be a very, very big curveball if Rusev ended up winning that Royal Rumble, or at the very least a good showing. But if that happens, then where does that leave Brock Lesnar, and where does that leave Roman Reigns at WrestleMania? Unless those two have a match as sort of a co-main event, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, leading up to the main event. Lesnar does not win, goes quietly into the night. Now Roman Reigns just conquered Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, sent him packing, for lack of a better word, and Roman Reigns is still at the top of the mountain.
And here's another person. One person who we haven't talked about who really could be somebody who I could legitimately see winning the Royal Rumble is Dean Ambrose. Now, he's really also gotten a big groundswell of support, and I think that if Daniel Bryan hadn't come back, we could have possibly seen a replay of last year with Ambrose in the Daniel Bryan groundswell of support role over Roman Reigns, who was kind of like Batista, the person who was getting the supposed push. But, of course, Daniel Bryan is back. But we could see this. What if Dean Ambrose wins the Royal Rumble, Seth Rollins cashes in and becomes the champion, and then they somehow allow Roman Reigns to get a chance to win his way into that match, and then you have what could be a really great, intriguing main event of the Shield exploding with a triple threat for the title with Ambrose, Rollins, and Reigns. That would blow the roof off the place.
Just like I read your mind earlier on, you read my mind just now, because I was just about to say that. Ambrose wins the Rumble, Rollins cashes in at Money in the Bank, or at Royal Rumble, excuse me, and then Roman Reigns is inserted as a triple threat. And then you could the question with that is, then what do you do with Brock Lesnar, assuming he has one more pay-per-view on his contract? Does he do one more match with John Cena? Does he do something with a younger guy, maybe even Adrian Neville or something like that from NXT? That would be the X factors. Where does Brock Lesnar play into that equation then?
Well, this is one of the reasons why the Royal Rumble is so much fun, because there's so many different chances, so many different possibilities of who could win, who will be the champion at WrestleMania. Of course, all sorts of different twists and turns on the road to WrestleMania, leading into Fastlane and then to the big WrestleMania pay-per-view. So before we move on, why don't we play what you were just talking about with your son? What do you think is going to happen, or what do you want to happen as far as who wins the Royal Rumble?
I want Daniel Bryan. I'm a fan first of his. I think he's, genuinely a good guy, cares about the fans, cares about the universe, and I just think he's earned it. He's earned it from a storyline perspective. He's been pushed down all the time. From a personal perspective, he's paid his dues. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's not your prototypical main event wrestler, at least in this day and age. And I think he's deserved it. He came back from a couple pretty, severe injuries, and the crowd just loves the guy. And, what's interesting about wrestling is you should always give the fans what they want, because then they'll watch. When you don't give the fans what they want, they still watch because they're angry and upset. But I think Daniel Bryan has earned the right to win the Royal Rumble, to main event WrestleMania, and hopefully his main event at WrestleMania lasts longer than 16 seconds or whatever it did against Sheamus that one year.
Okay, I agree with you. I think that Daniel Bryan I'm hoping that Daniel Bryan wins, and I think that they are going to have Daniel Bryan win. Of course, you could have Bryan versus Lesnar for the title. You could also do the Shield triple threat underneath. You could do Cena and Rusev underneath. That's 3 big matches right there, and that's not counting anything with Triple H, Sting, The Undertaker. So I think that Daniel Bryan is going to win, although there's a chance that he might win the Rumble, and then he might end up facing Rollins instead of Lesnar and winning the title from him. But now let's move on to something else, and something we talk about, great Royal Rumble matches and performances of the past. I mean, the Royal Rumble's been going on ever since 1988. I know that we've seen some really great individual performances, some great overall matches. I was wondering, what are some of your favorite Royal Rumbles, George, and some of you consider most impressive performances?
All right. When you asked me that question earlier today, or when you gave me this last night, I was doing some thinking. First of all, you always got to go back to the first one. Hacksaw Jim Duggan winning the first Royal Rumble. The amount of talent that was in that ring at the same time, legendary. Hercules, Dino Bravo, Tito Santana, the Executioner. I mean, just classic people. Kevin Nash coming back is always fun for me to watch, because I like him. I liked him when he was Diesel. Loved him in the NWO, the real NWO, Hogan Hall Nash NWO, not when it got so big that everybody and their sister was either in the NWO, the Red NWO, the LWO, whatever, during the demise of WCW. But when Nash came back in 2011 and 2013, that was really cool. A lot of people probably won't remember this one. 1993 Royal Rumble, the Giant Gonzalez, when he beat on The Undertaker. That was neat because you don't see The Undertaker getting manhandled that often. 95 Shawn Michaels coming in at 1 and winning it, and then they threw him over the rope. The British Bulldog thought he had it 1. He raised his own arm, and Shawn Michaels only had 1 foot on the thing, came back up. I loved 1998, Three Faces of Foley.
Yes.
That was fantastic. When he came in as Mankind, and then he came back as Cactus Jack, and then when he came back as Dude Love. That was really neat. And I love Kofi Kingston. He's not necessarily the guy that I get all excited about every Monday, every Thursday when he comes out, although that new gimmick is kind of cool. It's going to wear out, but it is kind of cool. But something about him in the Royal Rumble, he's almost Mr. Royal Rumble. Is he going to, do a pogo jump with a chair? Is he going to land on the what do they call them? The dividers, the black dividers, and run and do a sprint and jump? And it's funny because you always know he's going to do something crazy, and then you're watching it and your heart almost stops watching it because obviously he's practiced it, prior to the show. But what if he misses, or gets hurt? So that's one of the things I always look forward to, and just a surprise entrance. And with that being said, I'm thinking, I might be wrong, Royal Rumble's in Philadelphia this year. Paul Heyman's ECW was in Philadelphia. I'm thinking there may be 1 or 2 surprise entrants in the Royal Rumble from old ECW. Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, somebody. They might be in and out real quick, like JBL was last year when he asked Michael Cole to hold his coat. But I'm guessing and hoping that we'll at least see 1 surprise entrant from old ECW because they're in Philadelphia. What about you?
Maybe even Sabu. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Well, as far as my great Royal Rumble matches and performances, the one that really stands out for me, my all-time favorite Royal Rumble, has got to be 1992 with Ric Flair. I mean, just that whole match. He was in there for an entire hour. He came in number 3, and then Bobby Heenan, of course, his advisor at the time, was on commentary having a heart attack every time he was almost thrown out. And it seemed like every single guy coming down that aisle went right after Ric Flair, and he somehow hung on. And you talk about Royal Rumbles with star power. I mean, everybody was in there. Hogan, Piper, Sid, everybody. It was just a great collection of talent. And for Flair to come out on top in the only Royal Rumble in which the title was actually on the line, it was just an amazing, amazing performance. And the other one that really stands out to me was Shawn Michaels in 1995. I know that was a little bit of a quicker Royal Rumble since they came in, I believe, every 90 seconds. So Shawn didn't last a whole hour. Just the whole situation with he and the British Bulldog being the first 2, and then after 28 guys came in and out, they were the last 2. And you talk about how does Kofi Kingston do it? If Shawn had slipped off of those ropes, trying to do that amazing trick where he didn't land both feet on the outside, that would have changed everything. But he did it and managed to come back and knock Davey Boy Smith out. So that was really one of the greatest. And the all-time curveball as far as finishes was Vince McMahon winning the Royal Rumble in 1999. Just incredible. He barely did anything. He spent most of the time at the announce booth, and then he kind of snuck back in at the end with the help of The Rock and tossed Stone Cold Steve Austin out, leaving everybody with their just jaws on the floor. So I think those are going to be some of my favorite Royal Rumbles.
It's a fun pay-per-view to watch. In being there live and seeing it once. Again, bucket list. We drove to Detroit. Pittsburgh. Got the seats, and it was just the energy in that stadium when everybody's doing the countdown. And that's what's funny too for people that are watching that are consider themselves wrestling historians or aficionados like you. Watch the first couple and see how it's morphed. The first Royal Rumble, the crowd didn't count, really. There was no entrance music. The second Royal Rumble, the timer started, and the crowd started chanting a little bit more. The third Royal Rumble, there was some people had entrance music, some didn't. And then the fourth and fifth, it's just amazing how the actual match itself has developed over the years. It's fun to watch, go back and watch.
All right, it's a whole lot of fun. It's the kickoff of the road to WrestleMania. It's next week, the WWE Royal Rumble. Okay, before we wrap this up, George, I want you to put on your Booker hat and use your imagination and see if you can come up with the best, most perfect possible ending to the 2015 Royal Rumble. If you could decide exactly how it could go, and it could be a little bit crazy, what would George Phillips do as far as planning out the end of the Royal Rumble?
I would say the final two is Triple H, Dean Ambrose, Triple H, Daniel Bryan, Authority versus B+ player.
The Yes Movement.
They're going at it, back and forth, possible throw over, how that all done. And then Sting comes out and helps eliminate Triple H, with Daniel Bryan being the victor. Not only giving Daniel Bryan the victory, but setting up the feud between Sting and Triple H, which then leads to that match. Or something with The Undertaker. You never know.
That would be very cool, and it would really actually kind of realistic. I could see that happening. Now, here's my ending to the Royal Rumble. For a long time, I've been waiting for them to do something that they've never done before, and this would be something that would blow everybody's mind. I'm talking about you have the Royal Rumble, you get the 29th person in there, and then they go over the top rope, and all 29 guys have come in and come out. And whoever number 30 hits, and all that guy has to do is just walk into the ring and win without doing anything, because the first 29 guys have already been eliminated. Then it could be anybody. It could be Goldberg. It could be Hulk Hogan. It could be, and my pick would be to have it be Sting. So here is Seth Rollins winning the title earlier in the night, cashing in. 29 guys come in, 29 goes out. Here comes number 30 to win the Rumble, and it's got to be somebody big, because otherwise it would be a disappointment. People would say, oh, this guy didn't earn it. It has to be someone that's going to blow the fans' minds, to take the mind off the fact that he didn't really do anything to earn the victory, and that person, I think, would be Sting. And then you set up Sting's championship match against Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, with Sting fighting the Authority, and you have him come in with a baseball bat and try to rally the WWE troops with the baseball bat to fight back against the Authority the same way he eventually was able to rally WCW to turn the tide against the NWO. How do you like that?
Wow. When you're talking about, I'm picturing that in my head, and that would just, wow. Now, my question to you is, why hasn't Jeff Jarrett called you and offered you a contract to write for the new Global Force? Or how come you're not back in Ring of Honor writing, or you're a writer for WWE? Because that's just amazing, to be honest with you. And to truthfully tell you, if I was a writer, if I was Vince McMahon or Triple H, or Paul Levesque, as he's known, on the corporate side, why not do something like that? Why not shake things up so much that's leaving people's jaw just on the ground? Like that reaction of that one guy when The Undertaker lost, that's been all over the place now. The guy in the front row with his hands above his head, his eyes about popping out of him. Why not do something like that on a more frequent basis to really shake things up? That would be
great. Hey, spread the word. I've been pitching myself to them as an announcer for such a long time. Hey, it wouldn't hurt to write for them too. I think that would be a really fun ending, no matter who that mystery 30th guy who's going to walk down and win the whole thing. That's something that they've really never done before. Okay, anything else you want to say, George, before we wrap this up? This has been a great thing. We'll have to do it again sometime.
No, I appreciate it. And quite frankly, I think our second episode should be right after the Royal Rumble, talking about the results and seeing if our predictions have come true.
That sounds good to me. We'll have to do it when it's a little bit before Dominic's bedtime because I'm really interested to see what your son knows and what kind of great trivia items he has and just get him in there with us. It'll be a lot of fun. Let's set that up.
I'll tell you real quick. His little script that he wrote, he actually wrote a little script out. And he had Brock Lesnar winning the title match. He had Usos winning with Miz and Mizdow collapse, and I didn't help him with this. His Royal Rumble moments: 99 Vince wins, 07 Kane and Sabu, 14 Reigns breaks the record, 06 when Rey Mysterio wins and dedicates it to Eddie Guerrero. That was really neat.
Oh yeah.
95 Shawn Michaels comes in at 1 and wins, and he had 1998 the Three Faces of Foley.
Well, that's
and he
great.
literally sat down and wrote this out, like no help.
This guy's got a great mind for wrestling. He's only 10 years old. I mean, considering I didn't even start watching wrestling until I was 15. I didn't even start announcing until I was 23. So if Dominic is at this point was at the age of 10, I think he has a bright future in this.
Yeah, we're going to be working for him soon, trust me.
Yes, we will. All right. Well, George, it's been a pleasure to have you on the first ever George and Jeff show. And like you said, let's do it after the Royal Rumble and see where it goes from there.
Let's do it. Thank you, my friend.
All right. Thank you, fans, for joining us. We'll see you next time. For George Phillips, this is Jeff Gorman. We'll see you next time.